You're welcome back in difficult conditions on the top of Drumsalla Hill. Video 17p about Raragh Wind Farm, and this is going to test us all. It's not easy. I have a piece of paper here on a string, and there has been a strong wind all day. It has roughly been coming from Limerick to Dundalk, that general direction. It's moved a bit. So using that simple gauge, the wind is roughly coming from that way, having come round a bit. It may be a hurricane, part of the end of a hurricane or the beginning of one. So we can see then that the wind farm itself runs in a line roughly from Belfast to Cork. It's not exactly north-south, it's roughly Belfast to Cork. And but turbine number 5, which is here, and I'm going to show it to you now. Turbine number 5, I have to be very careful not to press the wrong button, is there. And turbine number 4 is in a line of roughly from Galway to Drogheda. Roughly that line, not parallel, not exactly in that line, but it's in a line parallel to that. And then turbine number 3 is roughly in line again. So the southwest wind, a wind coming from, we'll say, Limerick to Drogheda, will find all those 3 in line with each other. As it moves further south, they'll all be in line. So the south wind will be a disaster. As it moves west, we see number 4 and number 3 will be less of in line, but number 2 and 1 should be reasonably okay from the point of view of being in the wake of each other. Okay, now I'm going to pause this now for a second and just give you a few wee facts. So I paused there for a minute, and the distance between turbine 1 and 2 might be hard to see that. I know it's hard to hear me here because of the wind, but we'll be doing this again anyway. So the distance between 1 and 2 over there is 364 metres. The distance between 2 and 3 is 278 metres. The distance between 3 and 4 is 229 metres. And the distance between 4 and 5, that's the one to my right here now, the right of the camera, is 268 metres. And it's starting to rain now, so I'll either have to stop this video or pause it and hope I make it back to the studio, and be careful what... Now folks, I stopped the camera there and I moved indoors. And so far so good. It's very difficult to come down. I know people say you can get a program to mesh in previous videos with each other. I don't have that. All I have is the pause facility. So we were looking at Raragh Wind Farm there, and essentially it's aligned roughly from Belfast to Cork. That's roughly how it's aligned. But there's at least 2 turbines, and they're aligned more, we'll say Limerick to Drogheda perhaps, or maybe a little more Galway to Drogheda. And they catch the southwest wind. And this morning, today is it's Tuesday, and I'll get the date now for you. Yeah, it's Tuesday the 8th of October 2019. And there's talk of storms going around, but roughly the wind is coming slightly around. You can check it on Met Air and anywhere, then you'll get the wind direction. Just remember, turbine 1 and 2 are roughly in line, we'll say, with a line maybe from perhaps Galway to let's say County Down, or that type of a thing. So the wind has come round a bit more. It's more westerly now. The wind at the minute is roughly Galway to Dundalk, roughly that. So the wind is blowing that way, and turbine 1 and 2 is not exactly in line, but they were in line earlier, and it doesn't matter, as John Dooley pointed out about wind wake, and we'll be talking about that a bit more. The 1 and 2 turbine, that's the ones to the north. The distance between them is 364 meters. Okay. Now, according to all the studies, and you can get Peter Mitchell, wind wake, I think you'll Google it, and he does a sort of a summary on it, and he says that the very minimal they should be apart is 7 rotors diameter, and these are 90 meters rotor, so 7, 9, 63, they should be 630 meters apart, and all they are is 278. Okay, that one. Okay. Now, he also says that the optimum distance is 7. Sorry, it's not 7, it's 15. So you're talking about more than doubling that. You're talking about 1.2 kilometres nearly there. You know, so 1790s, you can work that out. But anyway, that's the story there for 1 and 2. Now 2 to 3 is 278. So that's very, very close. I mean, that means in the south wind there's 3 turbines no good. And even as it moves around to the west, they're being seriously hit by the wind wake. 3 to 4 is 229. Oh, this is ridiculous. 229. There should be a minimal of 630. 4 to 5, the last two, is 268. Unbelievable. The total distance between turbine 1 and turbine 5 is 821 meters, 821 meters. So they could comfortably fit 2 on that side. They can't comfortably fit 3. And they have 5. Okay. Now, just to get me documents. So here's 7 by 90 is 630 meters, right? Okay. That's the minimal recommended in all the studies I mentioned, including the John Hopkins and all those ones, and that'll be got in that thing. Peter Mitchell, wind spacing. And you'll get it there if you Google it, but that's what's in it anyway. And here is the distance at the best. That's 15 times rotor distance. 1 kilometer, 350 meters. 1.35 kilometers. So you can see here that yes, you can fit 2 on it. That's it. They have 5. Now, the next thing then is that, I mean, the wind here at the moment is sort of howling. You can hear it tossing the trees about. And the electricity demand at the minute is 3774. And wind is providing 2240. And renewables are providing 58%. So there's roughly 53 or 4% of that wind. There'll be other things as well. And at the moment, waste to heat, the burning of waste, which is 50% renewable, is almost certainly being denied entry to the grid. It's not allowed to dispatch into the grid, and it's wasting the power, which is predictable power, to let in the wind. So we're exporting 500 megawatts through the east-west interconnector. And we're paying the wind companies about, I say 75, John Dooley reckons maybe 78, 80. We'll say 78 for a compromise. We're paying them 78 cents, and we have no idea what we're getting from the British for the power we export. It's probably a swap basis, but it possibly could be negative. We may be getting nothing for it. So we pay the wind companies, and it's exported off, because it can't be allowed in, and then they get the premium price of we, the Irish bill payer, and we don't necessarily get a proper price for all the electricity. The electricity we export is proper firm electricity. It contains more than 40% synchronous fossil fuel power. So that's part of the rip-off by our politicians. So if we look then at some of the figures, the question is, what would the load factor, what would the output of Raragh Wind Farm be in a year? We know that it's as low as 14% in Mount Lucas. This is a slightly higher site, but it is in the shadow of the Loughnane mountain, which is far bigger. And we know that 24% could have been achieved around here on occasion, but it was only 20% or less last year. So I would think that if these were properly spaced, you might be looking at 22% maybe of an output. But because of the spacing issue, because of the interference with subsequent turbines with the ones in front, the output is hard to calculate. But taking an in-between measure, a mean measure between Mount Lucas and the 24%, it looks like Raragh will get 17%. Now, I know people will say that's a bit much, but I have to be a wee bit generous because err on the side of my opponents. So it might get 17% of an output there. Could be as low as 14, maybe 16. I think actually 16 could be more accurate, but possibly 17%. And that means that there's no cost at all when you divide... oh yes, I've after agreeing to take the cost of it down to 28 as well. Now 30 is the published figure. So you can watch out if there's any media, I'll be back to you on that. 30 is the published cost of Raragh Wind Farm. I'm knocking 2 off it. Now they have a lot of work done, they have a lot of cabling to over 5 kilometres of cabling, a lot of cost, and they're there since February. So I'm still going down to 28 million, just to be err on the side of caution again. And that would mean if there was no expenses, it would take 22 years to pay back the wind farm. So that's with no expenses at all. So yeah, you'd be talking about roughly 2041 when they'll have all paid. But don't forget, there is another factor in here. These are direct drive machines. These do not give the output, as engineer John Dooley told us. They do not give the same output as ones that have gearboxes. Sorry, now just to get this adjusted here. Yeah, everything's a bit precarious here because of the circumstances. Yeah, that's all right. So these are not direct drive machines, or they are direct drive machines, and the result is they will not break as quick, but there is a lesser output, and there probably is more parasitic, more power used by them because there's a lot of power needed for slow moving alternators. Anyway, I'm sticking to my 17%, and we can see that currently the whole fleet of Ireland's 3,500 wind farms is only allowed or only letting in 2,240 roughly, according to EirGrid's dashboard, or about 59%. So it's roughly the same. The concentration of wind in the system, in the demand system, is roughly the same as the concentration of wind vis-a-vis or in comparison to the actual installed wind capacity. So you see this expensive wind turbine, the best Raragh can achieve, even if it was perfect, is 59% because there's other wind turbines competing on a day like today. So that's no good. 59% is very poor. So then we look at yeah, here's where I get that figure. There's 3,500 megawatts of installed capacity of wind, and there's 2240 dispatching into the grid at the moment, and that's 59%. Okay. So I worked out a calculation here. And we take 8760 is roughly the number of hours in a year. This is a 12 megawatt wind farm, but really it's 11 megawatt when everything's counted and the distance it has to bring the power to and everything. So we're giving it 78 euro cent, or euros, 78 euro cent per kilowatt hour, 78 excuse me, megawatts, 78 euros per megawatt hour. Okay, and we're given that at 24%. If it was 24%, the cost would be 76%. Right, and that would bring them in 1.37 million. See it there, 1.37 1.37 million. This is the figure here. This is the figure here. 1.37 million. It'll bring in a year, okay? Now, but at the calculation for what it will bring in that I've done, allowing for a 17% capacity factor, 11 megawatt genuine output, and all factors, if it was allowed to fully dispatch into the grid, no blockages, its cost would be 1.37 and its income would be 1.27. And that's 100,000 euros of a shortfall. Right. So essentially, what this means is that even if there was no curtailment, if wind was allowed to get away whatever it could produce, and remember it's only getting away 59% at the moment, if it was allowed to get everything it can produce away, there would be 100,000 a year shortfall before it pays any banks, any dividend or anything. But the reality is, on an optimum day like today, it'll be doing well to get 59%, and that complicates it. But it takes down its factor possibly to as low as 15%, and that reduces this even more. So when the year is up, the first year of operations, and this is a brand new wind farm, not much can go wrong with in the first year, they have to find 100,000 euros to pay the banks. And what they're actually doing is, and what the stated aim of Eddie O'Connor, the owner of Mainstream Renewable Power, in conjunction with Raragh Wind Farm, what he has always said is build, get in, get permission, build and get out. I mean, some of the people around here who put this on their land asked the wind turbine people at the outset, was there any health hazard here? And they said no. Those crowd are gone long ago. It was originally PWWP. So those words were never intended to be kept. So we're going to have fun. It's a pity there's such noise and upset and killing of birds by these, because I would have great fun looking over at them. So what's going to happen with these huge losses? And I would be looking at the carbon tax. So before I come on here, I spoke with John Dooley, an engineer, and he claims that it's not going to be enough. It's not going to be enough to bail these out. You're talking about a minimum of 220 million a year, and that's now probably about 235 million a year. And you're also talking about the fact, as he makes the point, they're valued too high. Now, I had the tractor up the fields there, and to put the camera on, and to get me down fairly fast. And what I found was that with that, when I do my accounts for the taxman, I can write off the tractor in 7 years, right? Now, in reality, it'll do me a lot longer, but eventually there'll be repairs and all that, and there are repair costs. You know that situation yourself. So 7 years is allowed by the revenue, but in reality, I do my own accounts then to see how I'm doing, and I do allow 11 to 12 years. It's still not a lot. I have it now, I think about 7 years. So even at 12 years, there's nearly no machine but should be written off at about 12 years. If it's a lorry, if it's a bench saw, if it's a baler or anything else. Most of the balers that were out for roundy bale, big round bales, are now obsolete, and the new McHale balers are all coming in, and they're all improving, and you see them changing all the time. So it's not wise to have a 25 or 20 year depreciation, because in reality, 20 years ago, the modern wind turbine that was brought out, let's say 20 years ago, that would be 1999, is completely and utterly obsolete by now. So that is ridiculous. They have no value, and there's even a cost in taking them down. So we can see that they're overstating them in the books, and yet I have no doubt, I'm almost certain, although there's no news yet, we're watching the press very tight. Who is going to buy Raragh Wind Farm? Who is going to buy it? Who's going to stake up 28 million that need to be getting a little profit, we'll say 36 million. And as I've already posted, they can't even make a profit. They can't even make a profit out of their operations before they pay any costs. And then they're spaced all too close together. far too close together, and there can be dangers to the machines breaking because of them being too close together. And also it's recommended by the Warburg Foundation for having noise. That's going to make them worse. They're going to be noisier now, and the chances of claims for nuisance increases. Now I hope I've covered everything, and I know the sound hasn't been that good, but as we watch now to see what's going to happen with Bord na Móna broke, billions available for thrown into these things. At what point will some financial house, and I think the fact that John Lang has come out and said it is a big issue. Now bear in mind, I met the financial regulator about 8 years ago, and he told me the PSO levy is paid to the supplier. That's the ESB, Energia, SSE, and those suppliers. Lord gosh, he told me it's not paid to the wind company. Yet we know from John Lang's accounts that there is an entry in it that the PSO levy was paid direct to John Lang. And I have to watch my mobile phone because I know my mobile phone has been tapped, and if AirGrid or anyone is listening, I'm well awake to that. No sensitive information ever goes over on my phone. If there's something to hear, it's done by other means. I meet the people or I get the message accurately brought to me. But I know there's a rumour going around that Bord na Móna, who I've already spoke about, have got 100 million from the PSO levy. And that's a breach of European rules on state aid to industry. But I don't know, is it worth reporting it to them, because I don't think they'll ever investigate it, because they love this stuff. So we have a very precarious situation. The ESB is about to go bottom up, I think, or else that it's going to get a massive state bailout. We have all these wind farms losing. Did I say the ESB? I'm very sorry if I did. Bord na Móna. Bord na Móna. And in the video on Bord na Móna, I said Bord na Móna refused planning permission for the Loughree wood chip power station. It was Bord Pleanála. So just to get that right, Bord Pleanála is the planning authority that refused permission. And when I say here that if I said the ESB is going bottom up, if I did, I can't remember now right, it's Bord na Móna is about to go burst. It's bankrupt essentially. So we'll have to watch for that. And then all these other wind farms are going to go bottom up. And I think, to finish folks, I think this is where the carbon tax is going to go. They're going to try and keep these going at all costs. It's the most weird situation you ever come across, that while John Lang is trying to sell off his Irish and German and Australian wind farms, we're still building them here, and investment is going in one pot, and they can't sell them anywhere else. Greencoat Renewables, of course, is the one to watch. Have they more money? Where are they getting it? They have some of our taxation money as well. But anyway, I hope I got that across. Raragh Wind Farm. It's a pity it's so damaging to wildlife and to health, because I get a damn good laugh at them, these bloody idiots, and Eddie O'Connor talking about my farting cows and all this. He's the big fella, and the whole thing is totally and utterly bankrupt. Raragh Wind Farm is bankrupt from its starts. It's bankrupt from its starts. It can't even have any expenses. They'll have to run it without even any expenses. And then they get the bill for the parasitic power. They'll be getting the bill for rates from Cavan County Council, and the landowners will be looking for their lump out of it. And my land is beside it, and I can look over at it. It's just a pity. It's so funny. The damn bloody idiots and the green idiots that think that they can beat the system. I said at the beginning, be able to count is a great thing. So my video went on a bit too long. Thank you very much. And please, if you agree with me, give me a like. If you disagree, give me a dislike. Everyone likes a little encouragement, and we get this uploaded now. So thank you very, very much for watching in, and I'm delighted I got that done.